Welcome to the Small Town Big Arts Podcast. I'm Jeffrey Kirshner, the Director of MFA in Arts Leadership at Randolph College and an Associate Consultant with Ryan Ripperton Consulting. And this podcast is for the people doing the real work of keeping arts and culture alive in small towns and rural communities across America. We dig into the challenges, the wins, and the strategies that matter most for organizations just like yours. If you like what you hear, rate and review us, and most importantly, share with those working in the arts in small communities across the United States. Well, welcome to this month's episode of Small Town Big Arts. And last year, I had the pleasure of teaching an online course for the University of Lynchburg, which was a professional development course for individuals in smaller communities, producing, creating the arts. And during that time, I had the absolute pleasure to meet Shannon Daniels, who is the executive director at the App in Pikeville, Kentucky. And we're going to hear from Shannon in just a bit, talk a little bit about Pikeville and about the App and the wonderful work that they're doing. And it was really exciting to learn about the organization. And recently, Shannon reached out and provided an update on a project that they had been working on or were developing during the time that the course was going on, and shared that they had finished this project. And we'll talk about that as we go through the interview. And I thought, well, this is a wonderful opportunity, to share with the small town big arts community a bit about Shannon and the work that she's doing at the App, but also very specifically something that she has built out that I think would be great for any arts organization anywhere to hear about in regards to providing more accessibility for the arts in their community. So Shannon, welcome to Small Town Big Arts.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, Shannon, to begin, tell us a little bit about Pikeville, because I think people may know some things about Kentucky, but Kentucky is a complicated state with different regions and major markets, and there's a lot to Kentucky. So tell us a little bit about Pikeville, where you are, the region, population, culture. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah. I'll start off by saying it's Pikeville.
Pikeville, sorry, yes,
here,
yes.
It's Pikeville. When I go to the state fair and I talk about Pikeville at the state fair, people always want to know how you pronounce it.
It's a test, right? It's a test to know whether
right? Yeah, exactly. It's how I knew that I belonged in this community, even though I'm not originally from here. But so we're right at the foot of the Appalachian Mountains. So the city of Pikeville has about 7,000 people in it. I always tell people when I'm talking about it that it's like a Hallmark downtown. Like it's a beautiful downtown, and we take a lot of pride in that. I'm also on the Main Street board, and so we take a lot of spend a lot of time looking at like how it looks and all of that. But we're right at the foot of the Appalachian Mountains. The App itself is at the heart of the Creative Arts District, which is one street, but we have a Creative Arts District. And
which a lot of communities of 7,000 people do not have. So this is actually makes Pikeville very, very special.
Yeah. And we're part of the Main Street Association. So we are, recognized Main Street, National Main Street. But the county, Pike County, is actually the largest county in Kentucky by land mass, but not by population. So that in itself kind of provides a couple barriers because it is a pretty rural space. There's a lot of people living down hollers and far, out in the county that we serve. But Pikeville has we've got an art center, and we are actually part of a nonprofit that is run by the city of Pikeville. It's called the City of Pikeville Exposition Center, 501c3. And so there's 3 organizations in that. It's us, and then we have an arena, which is a 7,000 seat arena, which is like a block away.
And it's also impressive that,
I know. Isn't it wild? It's like
Yeah.
there's so many unicorns in this small town that's it's makes it really magical. And then we have an event center that's used for like weddings and meetings and things like that.
Hmm.
Pikeville also has a really, really robust and advanced hospital, Pikeville Medical. And then they also have the University of Pikeville, which is a growing college that has just grown by leaps and bounds, especially in the medical field. They're adding new medical
Interesting.
schools almost every day. So resident wise, you know, we've got about 7,000 people, but we have a lot of people coming in and out of the city every single day. Um, but it's still really rural. It's still small town. And Eastern Kentucky is, I mean, it's in the mountains. Like there's, even if you've been to Lexington, Kentucky, I mean, it's so vastly different, than
Mm.
what Eastern Kentucky is. So it's, you know, really hometown vibes. It's, full of storytelling and amazing musicians that, have random day jobs that you I mean they're some of the best musicians you've ever met, but I mean they're also like working at the DMV and you know all of this stuff. So um
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a really
This is
cool,
bluegrass tradition, I imagine, right?
very much, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a very, very cool place to live, a very beautiful place to live. And presents its challenges in the arts world for sure. Uh creative challenges, I would say. You know, you have to really, really think about what your community needs and wants, and what they're interested in, rather than the big picture of what things should be. I think that that's the big part.
Yeah, although Shan, what I think your superpowers is, in my time knowing you, is that that's your orientation. Because I think that I I would make an argument that being responsive to the community, right, is the way it
Mhm.
should be. But I hear completely what you're saying, right? That
Yeah,
there is a model or a way that that is provided to us very often from larger markets or long time sort of traditions from communities that may not be our own, right? That we think we're supposed to be doing something a certain way when we really, and I think you've been so, and we'll get into this in the interview, but you've been so responsive to Pikeville very specifically and to your region of Kentucky, and been very
yeah.
practical in kind of how you've approached that. Um, so that's, you got to give yourself some kudos on that for sure.
I kind of attribute that. I call myself a recovering introvert, because I despise small talk with the passion. So, and my staff will laugh and make fun of me because I'll be down in the lobby or I'll be working box office or whatever, and I'll get into these conversations about people's lives and you know deep conversations, and by the end of the day, you know I know all about their
Yeah.
you know, three kids and, you know, their dog and everything, and I'll forget to sell them a ticket, you know, but I know what they're interested in. So,
Well, and they know that you care about them, right? Which in turn goes a long way as a community builder
yeah.
and provider. And Shannon, your own journey too. You landed into this job. Your growth and journey as an executive director has been relatively new.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that too. Talk about your journey in leadership and how this came about.
Yeah. So, that kind of goes along. I can kind of encompass that with the origin of how the Appalachian Center for the Arts started. So that's what our official name is, Appalachian
Yes,
Center for
yes. I
the Arts.
called it the
Is
app because I'm so
Yeah, we
used to.
call it the app.
Yes.
um, but so we actually started in 2019. And we Let me backtrack for a second. So I came to Eastern Kentucky in 2011. I was brought in on basically just a summer stock contract as a props designer for another theater that had been uh, part of a town about a half an hour away. It's actually the town that I live in now. And they had been around for going on 50 years. They started in 1965, so it was a beloved staple of the community. It was an outdoor amphitheater, and kind of just fell in love with Eastern Kentucky and ended up eventually, taking more and more contracts with this theater, and decided to move here. I met my now husband, and we've kind of made a life here and everything like that. And over my time at that theater, along with props, I also took on a lot of other duties like stage management to sound design to acting to directing. I mean, like, run the gambit of theater
Yeah.
related
Yeah.
things. Just because I was part of the community and I loved it, and so then they decided that it was time for them to go like year round, because we were still operating on summer into, we would rent a space for fall and then find another space to perform for like a Christmas show type thing. And so
Mhm.
they decided to build a theater in Pikeville, a 200-seat theater that they wanted to do year round programming, all of that. And it was kind of just a perfect storm of events, with economy to the weather, trying to do shows outside in Kentucky, and it just getting rainier and rainier each season, and all of these things. The theater ended up having to close down in like towards the end of 2018. Um, but so the city of Pikeville was left with this building that had fairly new theater things like lighting and sound and all of this, and they still wanted an arts center. So it was kind of like a restart type thing. So they developed the Appalachian Center for the Arts, to be an arts center, not just strictly a theater center,
Mhm.
um, but an arts center. And they actually hired the executive director that was the last executive director from the previous theater, to run it. And she had moved here with her husband, so he became the director of education and engagement. And they brought me in and gave me the label of production manager, which basically meant I was still doing all of the things,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
as far
Catch
as,
all. Catch all.
yeah, technical, creative outlet things. So, and that was 2019. And then COVID happened, which
Mm.
was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Great
um,
time.
yeah, but the city, we were city employees, and the city made a commitment that they were going to keep everyone hired.
Mm.
So we went to producing online content. I mean, I taught like puppet building workshops, and I had a YouTube show called Prop It Up with Shannon, and I would go up to my workshop at my house and like find things in my house and make fake food and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
all of these things. I was like, well, what can I do, around my house today that's kind of artistic and share with the world? So um did a lot of that, got really creative. um and then I'd say it's about 2022. So I'm going on my fourth year now. So the executive director at the time, she decided to take another job that was closer to her family, out of state. And also because her husband was director of education, he obviously went with her. So then we were faced with a another look at what the app was, where we wanted it to go, what the city wanted to do with it. And I was kind of brought into a meeting to ask what my thoughts were on it, since I was quote unquote like the mama of the theater. I'd been around for so long, and I knew the building and all that. And so I gave them my thoughts, and they said, well, we want you to be executive director. And I said, I think maybe I would be better suited as an artistic director, and because I don't know anything about executive directing. And they very clearly said, that's not the job we offered you. Note taken. And so, uh, but in that meeting, I was like, all right, well, complete transparency, I know executive directors are responsible for fundraising and writing grants, and I've never done either of those. I
Mm.
just need you to be, aware of that. Um, and they said, when we see you at the theater, when they have events, when all of this, whenever something at the app is happening, you're the one that's there. Which
Mm, mm.
made sense, you know. I mean, I was
Yeah. You were
safe.
visible. You were
Yeah,
visible.
I was the visible one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I said, yes. But traditionally, that's not necessarily the things that I'm doing is traditionally not necessarily what an executive director would do. Um, and they were very honest with me too. They said, well, this theater, this art space can be whatever you want it to be. You know, we're kind of doing a fresh start. And we don't know a lot about the arts, but we're hiring people who do know about the arts, and you know about the arts in this community. And so I accepted the job, and spent the first year or so in imposter syndrome. And I've just kind of been learning ever since, and trying to
Yeah.
um, really do a lot of reflection and thought on what our community wants in an art center, and what can benefit them, and how we can make arts accessible in our town. So
Yeah, I think, and Shannon, I think I wanted to hear that whole story in the interview too, because I think one of the things that is number one, it wasn't something that you saw yourself in, but I think that the way that you oriented yourself to it is something others should model, even if they view themselves as an experienced executive director.
yeah,
In that you entered it into it saying, I've got things to figure out, I've got things to learn. I'm going to orient myself towards the community. I'm going to figure out what this needs to be as opposed to what I think it should be. And I think that is, I think, the kind of building blocks that really make creating an organization in a smaller community possible. And I the other thing too, you were navigating city officials, and the app is fortunate enough that it has support from the city, which is really great at
yeah,
Pikeville as a community supporting something like this, but that is not a guarantee, and it takes an individual that I don't think it's a coincidence that because they saw you, right? And I
right,
but that there is something about being forward and being visible and connecting with people and talking to people and getting to know people that is really critical to, I would say, arts leadership anywhere, but in small communities especially the case, where people need to trust you. They need to feel that you're one of them, you're a part. You say Pikeville as
yeah.
opposed to Pikeville, and
And
and all
that,
the things.
I will
um,
say, that can be a hard thing too. You know, I've talked to a lot of people who have, moved here, and there's some people who say, I feel like I fit in right away, and there's some people who have lived here for a few years. I mean, I've got some parents in our programs, of kids that they're like, we just don't, like, we still feel kind of like outsiders. And I think the people of Eastern Kentucky are some of the kindest, most loving people in the world, but I can definitely see, kind of people coming in from the outside.
mhm.
It's a hard balance. It for sure is. And so,
But
um,
even that you started with that, right? You started with you've multiple times in this conversation talked about how beautiful it is and how much you like people there.
it is
And and
gorgeous.
and it's and it shows through, right? And if you're gonna run an arts institution, right, in a community, you got to love that community,
Yeah, yeah.
you
Oh,
really
you
do,
have to.
and if you don't, you better figure out how to,
Yeah,
because it's not going to do any good, right, to come in and feel that you're above something, or that's not gonna be a recipe for any kind of success. Well, since you've come in, there has been some really fantastic uh, growth, stabilization in a really turbulent post-COVID time. Before we started the interview, we were catching up a little bit, and you were sharing uh, the the college is there, right? The theater kids at the college are there right now in the app, right? Doing
Yeah.
using the space for a show. Opening the building up to opportunities like that. And then another thing you shared with me that before, because we were getting on here to talk about an accessibility program that you have now, but before we get there, you were telling me a story about your fire chief and something you've been doing. Just tell everybody the story quick, because I think it's really helpful to kind of understand the utility of the arts, even outside the context of what you might initially imagine. So I think this is actually a great story. So reshare that story.
Yeah, so we I've got an amazing coworker. His I'll give him a shout out. His name is Crockett Ward. Awesome name of Crockett.
Yeah, it's a
And
great name.
yeah. So he's our director of education and engagement, and his two loves, major loves in the arts world, theatrical world, is stage combat and also improv. And he's an excellent improv teacher and also an excellent stage combat person. But for this story, improv is his baby. And so we do like improv classes and stuff, and we're really successful in our murder mystery dinners. That's all completely improvised, and people love it and everything like that. Um, but we've started branching into it started with actually the one of the banks in town. The one of the head people of the bank was on our advisory board, and she said, I'm looking for some kind of training to be able to get my people to be able to talk to their clients better, because we've got some really great financial advisors, but they need to be able to talk to their clients, and communicate with
Mm-hmm.
them better.
Yeah.
And so we started talking about, the fact that improv is all about listening and communication. A lot of people go in and they'll think improv, it means I have to be funny. It's not. If you go at it with the idea that you're going to listen, you're going to communicate, you're going to be in agreement and work together towards a goal, then you'll have a stronger improv team, right? So we ran this workshop led by Crockett, with this group of bankers, and it was super fun. They got a lot out of it. Even the people who kind of came in and were like, I don't know about all this. By the end, they were like, yeah, it was unexpectedly cool. And I
Yeah.
had been
Yeah.
mentioning it to my friend Kenny, who's in the fire department, and he was by one day. He comes and he does the fire inspections, make sure that I'm compliant and everything
Which,
like
by the
that.
way, good to be friends with the fire department when it
Very,
comes
very
to.
good.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and
That an
and
ABC license
exactly,
is.
yes, yeah. Um, and, and he was like, well, he's like, I think that would be cool for my guys to do. And I said that, and it's actually started off as a joke, because I was trying to get him to do we're doing an adult summer camp this year. We've added a new, we do educational summer camps for kids, and
Yeah,
we've added an adult
I
based
love
summer
that.
camp this year, which is another thing we can talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's so much going on. I was trying to talk him into doing the adult summer camp, and he was like, I don't know about that. But and then I tried talking to him about improv and how it's all just about communication and everything like that. And we're running these workshops and stuff, and he goes, I think my guys need to do that. And so, a message was sent out that the fire department had to be mandatory meeting for 3 days at the app. And yeah, Crockett ran some workshops with the entire fire department, and it was
I love it. I
it was
love it.
really cool, and we're continually finding ways. I think that there's a lot of opportunity in this community, because there's it's kind of branding. It's kind of like understanding how the community thinks. It's an artistic community, but it's not like your artistic community that's going to say, oh, an improv show, or oh, a really well-known
Mhm.
Broadway musical or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that. But the idea of improv, the idea of communication, the idea of art in general, the benefits of that lead into every
Oh
facet
yeah.
of
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah.
And so if we can find ways that we can go into these different groups, these non-traditional arts traditional groups, and share that, um,
Well, and they
one,
have a need. They have a need, and you
yes,
have an answer, right?
yeah,
The communication, whether financial advisement or whether you are dealing with people in an emergency situation where, the yes and approach and philosophy is extraordinarily helpful.
yeah,
And I think, we do, arts organizations, artists can kind of get into the what of what they do, right? It's this thing and this is the way it goes and this is the way it works. But, and this is a good sort of lesson for, as a theater director, the big moment for me when in my past was when I sort of realized, oh, my job as a director is to sit in the seat of the audience, right? That
hmm
I'm here to think of myself as an audience member, their viewpoint, what they're seeing, what they're looking at. And I think the same goes for running an organization. And I think you've done such a great job of plugging in, which is a good segue into you recognize, and this is a project when we first met. It was in its it was a long because you had some plans around it, um, but there was a need in the community, in and around autism and individuals with autism and experience in the arts, whether the individuals themselves or family or friends. So talk a little bit about the genesis and the project that you took on there at the app, which I think is really wonderful and I think could be replicated by other organizations in small communities.
Yeah, so we actually, since the app started, where I had been working with kids so much, I was recognizing more and more, and I don't know if it was just being talked about more or it has become more prevalent. I'm not sure. But we were serving more and more kids on the spectrum and more kids and now adults who are neurodivergent. And we also serve a lot of young children. And so we were taking steps in, making sure that we could make arts accessible for that demographic. I'd attended some workshops when I first started here with the app about people doing like sensory friendly shows and things like that. And I thought that that was a really, really cool idea, a way to, try and make the arts available for people who weren't as comfortable doing traditional arts, like sitting in a darkened theater and with the bright lights and the loud sounds and all of that. So we did. When we first started, we tried doing some sensory friendly shows and things like that. And those kind of filtered off because we realized that when we set aside a sensory friendly show and said that it's sensory friendly, we
Hmm.
weren't really serving the people that we were meaning to serve. I mean, it would be, if we were doing a
Interesting.
sensory friendly kids show, it would be the parents that would come, and then either people would go, oh, it's a sensory friendly show, so I probably shouldn't attend
So
that
that's
one.
not for me. Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the people who it was like meant to be for, they weren't coming anyway.
Hmm.
Not as much as, they were coming to other shows anyway. So um, we kind of filtered those off. We started offering sensory bags at every production. We still do. And
Hmm.
that is something that is fairly inexpensive and pretty easy to do. So we offer a sensory bag for anybody who can benefit from it. And it's literally just earplugs. We get them from bulk from Amazon.
Hmm.
A fidget toy, like a fidget spinner, something like that, a scented eraser, or something like sensory that you can like smell.
Hmm.
And then we just added a squish ball thing, and then we
Yeah.
also just this year added uh, communication cards. So it has like on one side it has like I'm feeling, and then you can like point to how you're feeling, and on the other side it says like I need bathroom or popcorn or where the theater is, things like that. And that actually, side note, that came about because I had an audience member who came up I wonder if I still have it. I keep it on my desk. Oh yeah, I do. Okay. So he came up and he tapped me on my shoulder while I was in the lobby,
Yeah.
and he gave me this. I don't know if you can see it on here, but he starred the performance. But he said it's a little too loud, but that just could be the sound system. And
Uh,
I said, thank you, so much. Like I got 5 stars for the staff, 5 for the food, 4 for the
yeah.
play because it was a little too loud. Um, and yeah, so he had and I also worked the concessions in the lobby. So he had ordered popcorn and it wasn't ready yet. So I was like, you know what, I'll just bring it to you at it, where are you sitting? And I'll just bring it to you.
Yeah.
So I brought it. I went to go find him. I gave it to him, and then he like held up his hand and he wrote like, where is, and I won't use her real name, but he had a friend that he thought was in the show. And I realized that he actually didn't talk. Like he talked all through these post-it notes.
Oh,
And
so
I thought,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sure we probably serve a lot more people who don't actually speak, So we just
Hmm.
made these little communication cards that,
Yeah.
people need them.
Well, and I'd say for anybody out there, it's really good to create these sensory bags and have them available. I'll share though too, when you do that and put up little signage at the box office, right? That sort of alerts people that you have it too, right? Because
Yes.
people won't necessarily know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's something that's not super hard for organizations to do and can go a long, long way for individuals.
Yeah, and that it ends up serving not only, kids with sensory issues, but sometimes we just give them to like little kids who are just fidgety,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
kids
sure.
toy in their, so we talk about it at the box office, we talk about it at the curtain speech and everything like that. So we started doing that. But then actually this idea came I started thinking more about different aspects of this idea because I have a 5-year-old son who loves going to the arts, but he's a lobby kid. So he would much rather concerts, anything. I mean, we can.
I love that, a lobby kid. I love
Oh my
that.
gosh. Listen, I brought this kid. I don't know if you're around the young kid culture, but Danny Go is like a superstar. Anybody out
Yeah.
there who knows Danny Go? And we drove to out of town to go see Danny Go, brought him to his first concert. It was Danny Go, and he spent the entire time just being amazed at the giant cardboard cutout of Danny Go in the lobby and not
Even though
wanting to
real
go to the
Danny Go was
concert.
in the
He was so excited. He wanted pictures taken with the cardboard cut. I was like, he's right there. um. So anyway, I've got a lobby kid. He's great. Milo's wonderful. But he feels more comfortable out in the lobby, dancing to the music, being able to move around. So,
Mhm.
um, in that and in the like working with the kids and the adult individuals that we work with, realize that there's a lot of people who can't sit through a 90-minute performance or a 2-hour performance, whether they need to move, whether they don't like the sights and the lights and the sounds and everything like that, or they just need something else, that they need a little less stimulation, all of that. Um, and also realizing that things like little kids aren't going to look at your calendar and say, "Oh, we're going to a performance, so I'm just going to be perfect little kid today." Or I anxiety doesn't look at your calendar and say, "Oh, you've got this show, don't worry about it." Like I'll take a break for today. That it can hit at any time, and so to be able
Mhm.
to make arts more accessible to our community, I thought, well, why can't we create a space that is more inclusive so that if something happens, while they're at this space, they have the ability to go up to this location and kind of just chill out for a second. So we decided to create what we're calling the break room. So it's a sensory inclusive space.
Mhm. Mhm.
I hesitate to call it sensory safe because I think that has more implications as far as uh, I think there's different things in a sensory safe space rather than inclusive. You're out in public and this is a space that you can be be if you're trying to just be out in public and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but this space it's got a blackout tent, and it's got we got specialized like hand-picked furniture with
Mhm.
we paid attention to like the feeling of the fabric, and we have a chair that like swerves back and forth, for people who like to wiggle like that. And we've got like a rocking chair and a sensory swing, and then we also have a bunch of sensory friendly lights and a sensory board and fidget spinners. And then for the little ones, we've got coloring books and different books and baby toys, like an alphabet mat, things like that. And then also, another thing that I felt was important, for me and also for other um, parents, is we got funding to put a live feed from our stage
Yeah.
out to a large screen TV in on the wall. And so anything that's happening on stage is shown on that large screen TV. So caregivers,
Can
if
still
somebody has
see
to
what's
go out with a
happening in the
baby,
theater.
they're not going to miss their 5-year-old on stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we actually just doubled this space we took a portion of our art gallery that's upstairs.
Yeah, I
So,
wanted to actually talk a little bit about that because you had a space that was being utilized in a particular way.
mhm,
And if I'm remembering right, Shannon, remind me of this, that that space was activated, but not at the level that you would sort of hope or want it to be, right? Like, wasn't the
yeah.
architecture, it didn't, like, it wasn't visited that often, if I'm remembering correctly, because it was kind of
Yeah.
been out of the
Yeah.
way.
So even the genesis of the art gallery. So during COVID, when we were able to start going back to work and things like that, it was just an upstairs lobby. That's basically what it was meant to be. I don't know
Mhm.
in the original plans of the original theater what it was like, what their phases were. I know that they were planning different phases of the architecture of the building. Um, so during COVID, we took up the carpeting that was up there, and we hung track, which was, I mean, it was like your basic, like I went and got molding from Lowe's type of thing and ran it
Yeah.
along. And I mean, it looks great. Like it's
Hey, yeah, I mean, hey,
but it was a big space. I mean, I had artists come in, so we another side note. I do a lot of side notes. My
that's
husband
good.
is the
It's all useful.
tech director for an art center in the town that we live in. Shout out to the Mountain Art Center. They're super cool. They're in Prestonsburg. And he also runs the art gallery that's in that in the Mac. And so we kind of share artists a lot. But his art gallery space has less space than what our space has. It's more accessible because it's on the first floor and you have to walk past it to get
Yeah,
into
so
the
people are going through it all the time. It's a lot of traffic. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But I would have artists come in and they would like move their space from the Mac to the app, and they'd be like, "There's so much more space. Like we don't have enough art to fill up
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
space."
Yeah.
Um, and also, along with that, we had the track, the hanging track, but it was all fluorescent lighting. We didn't have track lighting. And so one of the things that I had always wanted to do was put better lighting in the space for the art gallery space, because I thought, it has the potential to be really nice. It's just like the fluorescent lighting wasn't doing it justice. But also it's more space than what our artists can fill up for most of the time. And so we took a portion of that and made it into the sensory inclusive space. And so we still have, we've got art on the wall, so it's visually attractive. We've installed track lighting, got the funds to install track lighting. Oh my gosh, my phone's ringing. Sorry. Um, uh, Install track lighting, and then so it serves the art gallery, but then it also is better lighting for the sensory space. Um, and it's a quieter, you know, environment to be in.
Yeah.
Uh,
What I love about all of that is, just in thinking about, again, this sort of being responsive to a need, and then also taking something that seemingly wasn't working and then make it something that it is, right? Because if that, in the original architecture, this sort of space is there, it's not really being utilized that much. We're going to turn it into a gallery, but that's still sort of problematic, size, sort of traffic. But but if you have kind of an out of the way space, right? And what where would that be useful? How would that be useful?
Yeah.
Right. And then bringing these two things together. And I think, a lot of times, folks may have sort of underutilized spaces due to strange architectural features or things that people weren't sort of thinking through. But space is a premium, is at premium, right? Like we need space. And um, thinking through how you can activate a space in a way that it is playing to its strengths and then providing something that is going to be useful.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned too that for parents who want to come do the adult summer camp, which I love on all kinds
Hmm.
of levels, that now they have an option, right, for childcare there, correct? So they can, right, because
Yeah.
childcare is the thing, right? If you can't get away very often and do things like that if you have children, and so now that's an option now too, right? That provides that, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and it's there. And we haven't actually, that's a lie. We have had somebody take us up on it because my husband and I are both doing the summer camp, so we need childcare. But the other people right now that are signed up are like, that is an awesome idea. I don't have children right now, but that's,
Yeah, but
the
it's
fact
there
that
for
it's
them,
there,
it's there for them. Yeah.
but I will also say one other thing. There's two thoughts that I had about art gallery utilizing space that kind of wasn't working and adding to it. Um, First, now we opened up the art gallery space as like a space that you could rent. And it has made an excellent, with the addition of the sensory space, it's made an excellent spot for young birthday parties.
Oh yeah,
uh,
it makes a ton of sense.
yeah, my
Yeah.
son had his birthday party there. He loved it. It was great.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. That it would be a fun space for
Yeah. And
rental
you could,
activity too.
set some tables up and so the adults can hang out, but you've got,
Yeah.
the toys and the sensory swing and all that. Um, but the other thing is, it's a very Eastern Kentucky thing, and I think I talked about this in the class that we had. That you take things that don't necessarily seem like they should go together, but you just make it happen. Like we have a number of like laundry mats slash tanning salons, or like
Yeah, yeah.
you
While you're
know
there, get a tan. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. I know.
yeah,
So or like this guy, he sells like uh stereo audio stuff, and his wife has like a clothing boutique, and it's in the same store, I mean, so it's like
yeah.
these things don't go together, but they do, so it's I kind of look at it as kind of like a very Eastern Kentucky thing. So
Yeah. Well, I think as one thing I think I want you to share too is you had to raise additional dollars for
yes.
this. And share what that process was to raise the funds to make that happen, because I think that the fundraising for something like this could be daunting, but you all absolutely did it and got it done, and share that.
Yeah. And we raised our project involved a big portion of the cost was putting in track lighting. So I will say, because I don't want anyone to be deterred by oh my gosh, I have to we ended up raising about $20,000. But a lot of that was because we were getting a full installation of track lighting. So this is absolutely a project that you could do or take elements of and make accessible at not a big cost.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was, it was kind of a process. We applied for a lot of grants that we thought for sure, it just kind of made logical sense that we would get, and we just couldn't really get people to kind of latch onto it in the grant world. And I talked to a lot of people about it, and I think when it was still an idea, they thought it was cool, but I don't think that they could see kind of what it was until we actually started putting things in the space. Um, but we do have we are blessed with a supporter in the arts who has created in our community, who's created a fund called the Friends of the App Fund, and it's through a community foundation. And so they created that just for projects like as we need them, not like hey, we need money to purchase props, or we need money to pay for food for this event or something like that, but like we really want to do this project, and this is where this money is going towards.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to her because we were looking at a grant that required matching funds. They wanted to know, we were applying for the funding for the track lighting, but they wanted to know like where the rest of the money for the grant would, or for the project would come from. And I said, is this something that we could say is committed, that we do have the funds if this grant comes to fruition? It's not something that like I'm asking for money for it, but, and she said, yes, absolutely. We can use, we've got money in the fund. And the more she thought about it, she said, my grandson, he deals with has
Hmm.
sensory sensitivities,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
he does the summer camps and stuff with us. And she goes, I think honestly, if you don't get the grant, just use the fund, just do it,
Mm.
and it kind of just came like, whoa, like okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
um so we were blessed to have that. I call it a backup. She did actually help with a lot of making this possible, or this fund, not
Yeah,
just
but
her.
it spoke to her. It spoke to her personally,
Yes.
and you were able to articulate the need and the vision of it, and there was a responsive donor. I think
Yeah.
that's a big important lesson for folks. If there is a need and you can connect to people on a personal level, it can go a long way.
Well, and along with that, for other projects like the live feed and everything like that, I was able to go to other groups. So we actually got the funding for the live feed from another group, and they found out that this fund was offering money, and they said, "Oh yeah, we want to be a part of that as well."
Yeah, yeah. So people, yeah, it's a compounding
It's kind of
effect.
like a snowball, and people are like, how can I donate to this fund now, because we see what this project is, and now that we have things in the space, that people are utilizing it and going, this is such a great idea. This is, even people that aren't people that you wouldn't look at and go, oh, you know, you should go up and use this space. It's just people that are just like, this is really helping me. Like, this is
Mm.
great. Like, I've got parents who come for their classes and they hang out up there. And they're just
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. And a
we're gonna be
space that
up in
was
the trenches.
underutilized, and now suddenly people are up there.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
great. That's great, and
um
it and provides a clear community value that people connect to.
yeah.
And these things compound themselves, right? I mean, I think there's obviously the donor compounding, but now, from improv classes with firefighters to these sensory rooms, like people feel a connection to the organization. It's being
Mm-hmm.
responsive to their needs, and it's expanding their idea of what, the arts can be for them and their community, and or opens a door to an experience that they thought that they couldn't have for various reasons,
Yeah.
and it's awesome. It's so awesome. So for the future, do you have any further plans for the space?
Yeah, I think it's a space that's continually going to be changing. So the basically the what's in the space now came from just meeting with a lot of people who would be able to use the space. So I met with, experts in the field in our community, as well as, actual people on the autism spectrum and people who are neurodivergent, and parents of and family members, and just talking to them about like, what do you use? That's why we've got a sensory swing, is because a parent was just like, we've got a sensory swing at home, and that has been a lifesaver. And
Mm.
I mean, it's one of the most used items up there. Like, people love the sensory swing, to fidget spinners, to like all of this stuff. So um, I truly don't think that this is something that's ever going to be complete per se.
That's
Because
well, I love that though, because that's also the way you look at the organization, right? That it's just an
100%.
evolving, right? Just to be
Yeah.
responsive and evolving, and I think that that's actually really important ethos
Yeah.
and way to approach anything,
Yeah,
honestly.
and not to get too deep, but that's, a long time ago I gave myself the permission, like personally, to say I'm always going to be changing. My interests are always going to change, all of that. And
Yep.
so that's kind of the approach that I take with this space, is we don't, it's not cookie cutter. It's, what happens from one year to the next. We can change and evolve. We're building a strong foundation, and we know what is working, and
Hmm.
we'll keep building that. And if it ends up not working so well, then we can kind of ebb and flow and work with the
Yeah, and
community.
change
So
it up. Yeah.
um it's scary, but it's, if you have
Yeah. Yeah.
faith in that, and trust in your mission and what you're there to do and the why you're doing it, then I think that that's
Yeah, but I think it is a recipe for failure though to think that things are not going to change and that
oh
you
yeah,
can somehow stabilize something into something that will stay there that way forever. And it is scary, but it is also reality. And I think it's great that that's your approach. Well, I
yeah.
think Shannon, as we wrap up, if there's somebody out there who's looking to potentially um, take a space, right, that is underutilized or not working in the right way. What kind of, whether it be this or something else, what kind of advice would you give them?
um I would really emphasize reflection for sure.
Mm,
And I think I've talked a lot about, speaking with people and just having conversations with people, and trying things, knowing that it may change, your thought process may change, what you need may change. I mean, even in this space, the things that we put in there, in December, we've taken out of, and we're only in April, but we're
yeah.
seeing what people are responding to. And so um I think that comes from, I've always got a props designer mindset as well, because that's kind of where
Mm,
I got my start. And so a big thing about a props person is they have to look at something not for what it is, but what it could be.
I love
And
that. Yeah.
so
I love that as a metaphor. That's
it's
great.
it's true though, so I think that that's important to have that curiosity and to have that uh you know dream big, but also
Mhm.
have the reality of, don't try to do everything all at once.
Ah,
um
yes. Yeah.
I met with some experts who it seemed like, when we were talking about this project, it was extremely daunting, and I was like, oh, we're getting into big. But we're starting, quote unquote, small. I mean, it was a big project. I mean, geez, we raised $20,000, but we're starting, and we're gonna allow it to grow and change, and we'll see what it looks like next year. But I think right now, we're getting a lot of great feedback, and yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Shannon, that's so awesome. Well, it's been, I just, I was impressed last year, sort of learning about the organization and learning about the this project, and then I was so excited to hear that it had gotten done. But I think above all, I think just your journey as a leader is just really inspirational and fantastic, and you're doing a bang up job. You're just doing such a good job,
Yeah.
and they're very lucky to have you in Pikeville.
You're
Um,
not Pikeville? No.
they're
The
very
city's
lucky to
great. I
have
love,
you.
I truly like, they're wonderful.
Yeah, well, and it's clear that you do think they're wonderful. Actually, it shows in all of how you talk about what you do. Well, share with folks where they can learn more about the app and how they might be able to see some of what you've done.
Yeah. So we have a website, www.theapparts.org, like the Appalachian Arts Center for the Arts, the App Arts. And we're also on Facebook, and Instagram, and we have some silly videos where I basically make a fool out of myself on TikTok. Uh, we have a whole series where I audition really poorly for shows. And that's basically our whole TikTok. Uh, and so we're a lot on social media, but the website, you can see pictures of our sensory space. There is like a special page for that. And Also, if you're ever in Pikeville, Kentucky or in Eastern Kentucky, please just stop by. My phone number is right on the door. Just give me a call and I'll show you around and I'll give you a ticket to the show and we'll be best friends. It'll be great.
Well, I believe it. I believe it. I believe it. Well, Shannon, this has been an absolute joy, and I know our paths will cross again soon. And I really do encourage folks to take a look at the app and this new space. It's really phenomenal. So thank you.
I also should say, if anybody ever has questions or like, about the sensory space or anything like that, my email is also all over the website. So I love talking about it. So just
Perfect.
Reach out to me. I'm here.
Perfect. Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Small Town Big Arts. Remember to rate and review us and share with your friends. To learn more, visit us at smalltownbigarts.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Jeffrey Kirshner.